What's up again, guys? Dom here. I'm still recovering from my impromptu 24-hour stream, but I promised you guys a VOD review and I didn't want to let you guys down. Today I'll be doing another VOD review of the LCS. This match was between TSM and C9 on week 6 day 1, and the focus of the review will be centered around choosing which lanes to gank and pressure as a jungler, late game team fighting, and itemization. So first things first, we're going to jump right into pick bans of the review here. Started off, this VOD starts a little bit late, so I'll just kind of go over the first 4 bans before I press play. Nidalee was the first ban here, which has kind of been a theme versus rush. You have pretty much 2 options when you play C9 right now. The first one is to first pick Nidalee, and the second one is to ban Nidalee on blue side. So those are pretty much what you have to work with. Rush will take that champion 100%. He'll play it into anything, and they focus really heavily on comps that let Nidalee excel and let Nidalee's early pressure really dictate the pace of the game. So Nidalee's first ban, completely understandable ban of TSM. If Sven doesn't want to play it, you should 100% ban it. The next ban is Lulu from C9, which is still a very high priority pick in this meta. It's kind of up there along with GP and Poppy and Kog'Maw and pretty much all these tier 1 champions, and I think that it's still extremely strong, and it enables a lot of carry top laners if you choose to play it mid, or it allows you to run comps centered around a hyper scaling AD carry. So understandable ban if they predict TSM is going to be playing something like Kog'Maw, or if their plan is to let Kog'Maw through, then banning the Lulu is 100% the right choice. And they probably have information, since these 2 teams scrim a lot, whether TSM prioritizes it highly or if they don't prioritize it at all. So those are the first 2 bans. The next ban from TSM is another target ban. This one's on Orianna, which has been a champion that Jensen's succeeded on greatly. He's had a lot of success with hitting really clutch shockwaves in teamfights, and he pretty much never loses lane on Orianna. He's always up in CS, and he always pressures the map. In my opinion, the only way to really exploit Orianna is to shut her down in lane and abuse the fact that she's somebody who is not extremely mobile. She has to stay in mid for the most part, and you can make plays around the map. But versus C9, it's obviously a decent target ban. Understand that completely. Fiora ban comes out from C9, another extremely strong champion. Fiora has something like a 15-1 win rate in the LCS right now, so it's a champion that's been doing extremely well. And Hanser played his last 3 games, won all 3. Solid ban there. So yep, that's just a little bit of insight on the first 4 bans, and now we'll start the VOD review and see what else TSM decides to ban. Yeah, and as the casters are talking about, Kog'Maw is an extremely strong pick right now. Malphite is banned here against Balls. I think they just wanted Balls on something that's not as supportive, and a champion that he would have to have a big game impact. But yeah, spoiler alert, Balls ends up going off. So I guess their plan of forcing Balls onto a carry role didn't work out perfectly. And Lissandra is last ban from C9. I was actually pretty surprised about this ban. I think the main reason they did is because TSM has been flexing that pick, and they just wanted to be able to understand which champions were going in which lane so that they could counter pick easily on especially their second rotation. So Kog'Maw's first pick. Now, I saw differences in priority in this champion across regions. EU seemed to leave it up more and pick it around the middle of the draft, but in NA it was like first pick or ban. That was how people perceived it, which I think is actually correct. I think the champion is extremely strong. Sure, there are ways to counter it in lane. It doesn't have the greatest lane phase, but I just feel like it's so dangerous because if you do mess up or if they do get 2v1, there's all these things that can happen that allow Kog'Maw to hit his 2-item power spike and just take over the game. So this Kog'Maw pick leaves up Gangplank, which is another extremely strong pick right now. Something that I consider in the top 3 champions, and C9 decides to go for it here. The reason they don't want to pick GP and Poppy, which are 2 really high priority picks right now, normally first rotation picks, is because that gives away where GP is going, and it also makes your comp really AD heavy. You'd have to round it out with a Corki bot lane and something like an Elise jungle just to make the comp function in terms of damage types. So they decided to go for GP and Kalista. Kalista is another extremely strong pick. It allows you to have some engage, which is something that you need versus Kog'Maw. if Kog'Maw's allowed to sit in the middle of the team fight and auto attack, you will almost 100% lose the fight. Even if the Kog'Maw is behind 100 CS, if the Kog'Maw has 2 to 3 items, or is within 1 item difference between him and the AD carry, Kog'Maw will just output more damage. So TSM thinks that they can get Poppy whenever they want in the draft. Even though they prioritize it highly, they'd rather just save it till later and have more options from a top laner. Gragas is something that's high priority right now. It has very few bad matchups. Pretty much the only bad matchup for Gragas that I see is Nidalee, and since that's banned out, it's a completely safe, blindable jungler. And the Braum comes out for Bjergsen. Or not for Bjergsen. For TSM, it's going to go to Yellowstar, but Bjergsen ends up picking the Braum is what I mean. And this is just a champion that is solid to just pick into everything. It's just a blindable support, and it's something that Yellowstar is kind of favored. So, yeah, they decide to go for the Braum. Also, Braum isn't as good as Alistar in terms of getting a champion through lane phase, but at least the reasoning behind it is it doesn't have super bad matchups, and the Kog'Maw W would proc the Braum stun really fast, so there is potential to make plays in that lane. Also, Braum Gragas, make sure that your bot lane is gankable. Something that I found interesting here is C9's had a really high Alistar priority throughout the season. In this specific example, they didn't pick Alistar, where when I was watching the game, I was 100% sure they were going to go Kalista Alistar here. I'm not quite sure why they didn't, because it seems like Engage would be really good versus Kog'Maw, but I guess that they just played a lot of the Soraka Kalista lane, and they felt that they would be able to pressure bot lane harder with Soraka Kalista than they could with Alistar Kalista, because Soraka Kalista is able to trade more, where Alistar becomes more farmy. Alistar is really just strong in all-ins. So yeah, Lee Sin comes out for Rush, go-to pick. Rush is like literally first priority, Lee Sin second priority, and he's willing to play it into anything. He's willing to play it as a tank, as a damage dealer. He just has so much experience on that champion. And something that I've learned from Rush is the priority or the mentality around Lee Sin in Korea and China is a lot different than the priority and mentality around Lee Sin in NA and EU, because of this main thing, which is that in North America and Europe, people consider Lee Sin as a really strong early game champion that falls off heavily late game. But in Korea and China, they perceive Lee Sin as a really strong team fighter. So they think that he's actually decent in the mid to late game team fights because of just the kick, and they rely so heavily on being able to get that kick off. I personally think it's really hard to do. It's extremely hard to pull off, especially against a team like Poppy, who can just put up his W, and it's almost impossible for Lee Sin to get a ward jump to Q in. It hinders so much of his mobility. Braum is able to just ult you if you ever come in, and they can focus you down. Gragas has his E to stop insect plays, and his ulti can blow your backline away if you engage as Lee Sin. So it's really, really hard to pull off, but if you're confident enough in your mechanics and your ability to make these plays, I can kind of see why other regions, primarily China and Korea, are so heavily Lee Sin favored, because they just believe he's a strong team fighter. So that's at least my reasoning behind the Lee Sin pick, or what I've heard the reasoning behind the Lee Sin pick was. It's hard for me to agree with. I would just think that there would be too many things that would just cock block you if you tried to go in. If you're playing Lee Sin into Poppy, that just normally doesn't feel like a good matchup for me. But that's at least the rationale behind it, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. And LeBlanc is blind picked here from TSM, which I think is kind of a weird pick. I thought that they would go with something more consistent. Maybe, for example, they could go with something like the TF, so they would be able to port bottom and make plays on the Soraka. Soraka is really weak against coordinated 4-man plays on her lane, but she's really strong in 2v2 laning, and if she gets to late game, she's one of the most annoying champions in the game to deal with. She becomes a priority to kill in the fight, and she'll normally position so far in the back that it'll be hard for you to be able to actually get her, and a lot of times you'll end up suiciding your team just to kill a Soraka. The saving grace of this is that Kog'Maw does so much AoE damage. TSM as a whole does so much AoE damage because Bjergsen can just mimic his W and just have the majority of his damage become AoE. Gragas really doesn't have to single out a target. And Kog'Maw will build Runaan's and Ginso, so his damage will be very spread and very AoE too. So you don't have to worry about Soraka just perma-healing a tank and having that person just live forever while your whole team's getting AoE'd yourself. You can kind of hit everyone at the same time, and Soraka can only ult once in the team fight. So I understand why they picked LeBlanc, but I think there are better picks. Obviously, Lissandra's banned, Orianna, Lulu, those are all control mages that are blindable. Maybe they had information that the Lulu and Lissandra would be the two main champions that Bjergsen would go to, and if those failed, then he would end up going for something like the LeBlanc. But in my mind, I would much rather see a safe control mage with this type of comp, especially because Kog'Maw is such a threat. I feel like if you just play around the Kog'Maw, you end up winning the game. So, yeah, those are the picks for TSM, and C9 ends up last picking TF, which gives them a really strong global comp. Right now they have 3 globals inside their team comp, so they can cover a lot of ground. Post 6, when all 3 lanes are 6, top, obviously the Gangplank 6, his ultimate becomes global. TF has the same global ultimate mid, and then Soraka has a global ultimate bottom. So once they're all level 6, they just have to worry about using their ult and coordination and not wasting global cooldowns. That's the most important part about playing globals, is when you use your Gangplank ulti and TF ulti on the bot lane, or if you use your Gangplank ulti and your TF ulti on the top lane and Soraka ulti on the top lane, that those plays pay off, because in 5v5 team fights, you're just simply not going to be as strong normally with a global based team comp. So yeah, first thing to consider is lane matchups. Poppy versus Gangplank is a matchup that needs some pressure on the Poppy side. Gangplank is a champion you just never want to let free farm, especially because of his ability to barrel chain in the late game and the amount of damage he can output. So generally speaking, when you play Poppy versus Gangplank, you want there to be a low economy top lane matchup from the Poppy side. If Poppy has 1 item and Gangplank has 1 item and they enter a team fight, Poppy's going to be more effective. So either your options are to 2v1 and force a low economy game for the Gangplank, or to put some type of pressure top, either through coordinated plays or through just ganks to get him ahead. In this game specifically, I don't think that you need to pressure the Gangplank as hard as normal, because you do have a Kog'Maw, which scales extremely well himself. Also, I think that when you pick LeBlanc, you obviously want to be ganking mid lane a decent amount. Gragas LeBlanc has really high kill pressure on something like TF, because if they just gank at level 3, you hit 1 chain, you're pretty much guaranteed to get the kill. And if it becomes a 2v2, you'll probably win the 2v2 just based off the fact that TF won't be able to return damage as well. So in this game, I think that Sven's priority lane should be middle, and his second priority lane should actually be bottom, just because if Kog'Maw does get ahead, he will be able to 1v9 carry the game. So killing the Soraka lane is obviously a really easy kill. You have Braum, Gragas, really good at killing things like Soraka and Kalista. There's pretty much no way they can get out of that. And then mid is another gankable lane because of the chain combo into the Gragas gank. So in my mind, Svenskern's priority should be number 1, focus on mid, number 2, focus on bot, and number 3, go top eventually and bring the pressure that you generated in mid and bot to the top lane and get Gangplank off his turret or kill him. Also, I think for TSM, 2v1 is a possibility here. Soraka does not do well in 2v1. I would have liked to see them go for a 2v1. Braum has a lot easier of a job in 2v1s. It's easy for him to make plays. He can do things like roam mid level 2, pressure the TF. He can just he's a lot better when you're only level 2, level 3, and you're roaming around the map than Soraka is. Essentially, Soraka's strength is in 2v1 is, oh, my lane just got chunked, I'm going to go mid and heal him 4 times and then recall, and that's going to be my pressure on the map. So I think 2v1 would have actually favored TSM here. Also, they end up dodging the Lee Sin pressure, which obviously is something that I talked about earlier as not one of the main priorities for C9. They don't really care about how much pressure their Lee Sin has pre-6, but I think it's a way to play a more safer and controlled game and not let the Gangplank get out of control. So yeah, right here they're not particularly winning the bot lane. They took a really bad trade level 1, and Soraka's just gonna heal that up. So pretty much TSM needs to send their jungle pressure towards bot lane, or else they're gonna end up just getting rolled in the lane. Kalista's going to keep this pressure. They're going to push in the lane once, and then once the lane is pulling back to C9 side, they'll pressure on the next wave of minions, which is normally how bot lanes establish a large amount of pressure when they have a good lane. They'll fight early, push in the wave all the way, then once the wave starts coming back to them, they'll start zoning the enemies. So something to consider here. Rush does a weird path here. The enemy, or his team, started his own Grump. C9 started Kalista and Soraka on their Grump. And because Rush wanted to do an efficient path, he wanted to get 4 camps and back, he ended up making that 4th camp blue buff, where normally he would just end up doing Grump there and backing and then doing another clear again. It's very clear from his start here that he isn't going to look for early plays. He's going to use the fact that he's Lee Sin as a mind game against the enemy. What he's going to try to do is be like, oh, I'm Lee Sin, you have to respect my early pressure. And because they have to respect his early pressure, he's just going to try to get ahead through farm. When you play a matchup like this, before we get into the gank, the enemy jungler, in this example, Gragas, is going to have a hard time controlling the early Lee Sin. He's going to have to do things that are not efficient for him to ensure that his lanes don't get ganked. For example, going and getting the Scuttle Crab level 3. A source of vision so that his lanes can't get ganked. He also puts a ward on the other entrance. So he's put 2 wards in the bot side, or he's got vision in 2 places in the bot side to try to protect the lanes against early Lee Sin pressure. And instead of Rush, walking through these wards and trying to make plays on his lanes, which are pretty self-sufficient, his mentality is, oh, I'm just going to farm up, get 6, I'll be more efficient and get ahead of the enemy jungler. And then once I have a level lead, I'll start making plays once my globals turn on. So I thought this was a really smart jungle path from Rush. It was a really good way of adapting to what was happening in the game. And I know exactly what it's like to be Svenskeren. I've played Gragas into Rush's Lee Sin multiple times, and I always ended up getting a little bit behind in the first couple levels by protecting my lanes. I felt like I needed to put wards down, put vision down for my lane so that they can play safe, because if they don't know where the Lee Sin is, they're going to have to get zoned off minions, and they won't be able to farm up and get to the point in the game where they can actually be effective. So, smart play by Rush, and the necessary play was made by Svenskeren. Coming down here is decently smart. This is actually, in my mind, a really hard gank to pull off. If you see where Soraka is positioned, if she doesn't walk forward from this point, they can't force too hard, but Yellowstar ends up hitting a really nice Q flash on Soraka, and it guarantees them the kill. So yeah, let's play it out here. And there it is. The Q flash from Braum hits it, and immediately the follow-up from TSM. They committed super hard on this, which I thought was really good. It's clear shot calling from Yellowstar here, where he was like, hey guys, I can Q flash him. As soon as he lands the Q flash, Doublelift immediately flashes forward with his W to proc the stun, and Svenskeren just follows up. So yeah, really solid play from Yellowstar there. Really solid mechanical play, which is something that people have been really knocking him for. I've been knocking him for it myself when I've been talking to people. I don't think he's had a great season mechanically, but that was a really solid play, and it gets his team decently far ahead. So right here, Rush has to help out Jensen. This is a matchup that's not good for TF early. The main way that you play this as TF is you try to bitch it out as hard as possible. You farm with your Q, max range if you have to, and try to get to the point where you get your Negatron, you get your boots, and you can start roaming and laning evenly. You can't get one shot by LeBlanc. So Jensen calls Rush mid, says, hey, I'm low. I'm not winning the lane at this point. I need you to come push it out for me so I can get a good back timing, get on the map, and I can eventually start pressuring once I'm 6. So Rush has to show and get his team through lane. And that's something that a lot of viewers don't really notice as like things that you have to do in competitive play as a jungler, but that's what separates solo queue junglers from competitive play junglers, is things like that, having to adapt to how the lanes are going and knowing when you should just go to a lane to push it out or when you need to protect a lane. So a lot of just solid map plays coming out from both teams, from both junglers, just knowing what they need to do to get their lanes in decent standing. Rush flies over. He's still trying to hit his 6. He's got a little bit of a level lead on Gragas, especially after he wins that Smite War. The main reason that Svenskaren's even here is because he knows that Bjergsen has pressure on mid, and Jensen will not be able to rotate to the Wraiths and fight him. So Bjergsen ends up farming the wave. He's going to hit 6 here off this wave, and now it's starting to become a little bit harder for TSM to make plays. If I was Sven right now, even though he doesn't have flash, they should be looking for kills like that. If he lands that combo and Svenskaren's there, then that's a kill 100%. And at this point, from what I understand is happening in the game, I think that Sven is just saying, okay, yeah, I understand that we have this window to make plays. Let me hit 6 first, and then I'll start trying to get a kill around mid. And Bjergsen's playing super aggressively right now. I honestly think it was almost too aggressive at this point because he doesn't have a blue buff yet, so spamming all his spells kind of loses him control. It's better for him to have his mana and have his spells for a potential gank to threaten Jensen than for him to get in the light amount of harass that he's getting in right now. So, yeah. Rush has his Cinderhulk, or his Bomby Cinder, going towards Cinderhulk, which is pretty necessary here. He's the only tank on the team, and normally you want at least one tank on the team with Soraka because as you build tank stats, armor, and magic resist, which he'll eventually be building this game, your Soraka heals become more and more effective. So, yeah, missed cannon. Pretty unfortunate. Unlucky, as Jensen would say. Or he'd say he's boosted, one of the two. And yeah, Bjergsen really needs this blue buff so he can start comboing on cooldown. At this point, he's just not able to really pressure Jensen. Jensen's not afraid of the repeated harass. So, yep. Svenskaren's trying to pressure mid, but he just hasn't been able to like actually burn anything. If he gets to burn a summoner there, or he gets a really good chunk on TF, then it's really beneficial for TSM because it allows the other lanes to play safe. Here I actually think they should have went harder on this. Obviously Svenskaren missed his body slam, but if he did connect there with his body slam and he immediately ulted, Bjergsen didn't even use his ult in that combo. If Bjergsen, if you watch this, how it plays out again, Rush has no W, he W's into the bush. They probably couldn't have known this. Or actually, they knew he had to W there at some point, but they didn't know he just W there. So don't really fault them on not knowing his cooldown there. But yeah, here, if that body slam connects, all they need to do is Gragas Q and then ult and pop your Q as it's coming back. Bjergsen QRE on the target that's still being knocked back, CC'd. Drops his W2, ignite, and Rush should die from this amount of HP. If you look at this combo, he's at this amount of health without Gragas ult, without LeBlanc ult, or ignite. He would probably die there if they ended up committing, but I guess part of the reason they didn't want to fight is because they thought it would be a 2v2, and Gangplank has his ult, which makes them feel like, oh, this is actually not going to be a straight up 2v2. This will be like a 2.5v2. But my opinion, all in on that. Try to get the kill. Rush would most likely die there. I think that you should be going for a fight like that when you have LeBlanc Gragas. What's really interesting about this game is there's like a rule of thumb as a jungler when you play competitive, which is always pressure the global lane. If there's a lane that has a global, like a teleport or Karthus, TF, Soraka, all these champions, Gangplank, your mentality should be pressure the global lane. But it's really hard to play when all three lanes have global because you don't know exactly which lane you should be pressuring. In this case, watching the game, it's a lot easier to say, hey, you have LeBlanc, your best kill potential is probably on mid. High's not level 6 here, so pretty much for TSM, pressuring mid or bottom would probably be easiest, or making 3-man coordinated plays on top after they already established mid priority. But in the game, I don't fault Svenskeren for being a little indecisive here, not knowing exactly where he wants the pressure, because it's so weird that you play against 3 globals in a competitive game. This is an extremely hyphy play by C9. The reason they're doing this is because they have Sirocco ult, so they're just trying to abuse the fact that they can make this play. I thought it was really clever for him to ult out here. This is just a lot of mechanical outplays. If Bjergsen got the chain off or one more auto, balls would have died, so that's a little bit unfortunate. This was super hyphy from Rush. That's not a guaranteed kill at all. If you see the way Jensen plays it, he actually plays this really well. So he ults out, and he comes back in while potting up. And he's not able to get the gold card onto Sven. Sven's able to get out, and the way Jensen plays this is he gold cards LeBlanc, and then he tries to use the outer portion of his Q to hit Sven, which is actually a really smart thing to do as TF, because people don't expect to dodge the outside of the cards as much as the middle of the cards. So he's trying to just kind of fake it out where he doesn't think he's going to kill Bjergsen here. He's not trying to kill Bjergsen. He's just trying to make Svenskeren think that he's safe so that he can clip Bjergsen with or he can clip Sven with the cards. So Jensen's just trying to just make a small mind game with Sven, like, hey, you're safe, buddy, and then he's gonna throw the outside of his skill shot and try to clip him. So yeah, he ends up clipping him here and killing him. He also was pretty close to killing Bjergsen, but it was definitely a play where he was definitely conscious of what he was doing there with that wild card. But yeah, that just goes to show you how globals end up interacting. C9 would not have won that if they didn't have the Soraka heal. Jensen would have just died immediately here without a Soraka heal, but Soraka allows them to make these plays. So this is why I think that fighting top is pretty hard, because they have the double global that can easily go top, whereas bottom you have an easier job of just popping the Soraka and not getting completely turned on. Yep. So close, dude. That could have easily been a 2 for 2, or even just a 1 for 1. Everyone could have just backed after that. So yeah, pretty solid mechanical plays all around so far. One thing I wanted to point out is because C9 dove on the wave, the reason that you see a lot of teams pressuring around waves is because if you go for an even trade and the enemy team has a wave on their turret, then they'll end up missing the wave, which will end up giving you an advantage of just gold. So an even trade when the wave is pushing to the enemy ends up normally being a positive trade. At this point, it's really rough. They can't even fight anymore around mid. Jensen has doubles. He has the Negatron, so he's going to reduce a lot of the damage since Gragas is full AP, or his damage is full magic. And he actually is full AP at this point, too, because he's going Runic Echoes. But, yeah, Gragas is full AP, full magic damage. Bjergsen has a lot of magic damage, but no pen yet. So the Negatron is super effective right now. They'll pretty much lose all 2v2s guaranteed mid from this point onward. Because of, obviously, the Soraka ulti, which is now up again, and the Gangplank ulti. So, yeah. Rush feels completely confident to walk in with all the globals he has. What TSM need to do here is they need to force very coordinated plays. Things where they just start off a dragon and they have everyone there just waiting, and C9 has to use their globals in a 5v5 situation. That's a lot easier to play out than letting C9 use their globals to pressure all over the map. And this isn't something that needs to happen right now. They don't have to immediately force a drag right now, but that eventually needs to be the game plan. Something like controlling Baron and starting off the Baron, threatening that they're going to do it, and then turning off the Baron and forcing a 5v5. These are the things that TSM needs to do to win, because they are against so many globals. It's going to be so hard to play the widespread map game against the complex C9s. So yeah, Balls is super far ahead in CS because of the dive. I mean, he was winning by a little bit, but the dive on Poppy, where Poppy died and lost a monstrous wave, really affected pretty much the outcome of this. And also that dive could have been cleaner by C9. This is just a really solid play by Rush. It's just a bait from Jensen. If Jensen's playing far up at the enemy turret, then LeBlanc's going to want to punish because he knows that, hey, I'm LeBlanc versus TF. I'm expected to do well in lane. The second Bjergsen jumps in, Rush is just waiting over the wall. Gold card into QRQ from Rush, and wild cards to follow that up. Instantly killed. So he's just waiting here. Up the bait. And Bjergsen is deleted. Now this here was just a really bad force from TSM. They completely allowed, if you look at how this fight actually is, look at where Poppy is. This was a 3v5 essentially. All 5 from C9 are there. Bjergsen died, so he was in base, so I don't even know what prompted them to start this dragon. And Poppy teleports in, but at that point they know the fight's completely lost. So this was just a really bad idea to force this dragon. They didn't have their AP carry, and it wasn't even a 5v5. This was a 3v5, which is the opposite of what TSM wants. They want straight up 5v5s where they're able to use their comp to pretty much bulldoze C9. So yeah, pretty much the mentality here from TSM is they pushed in bottom. The only reason that they would start dragon here is they're like, hey, we have lane pressure bottom, we can go for dragon here. But something that you have to remember whenever you're controlling side objectives is to make sure you have pressure in both lanes that are adjacent to the side objective. So for example, in this clip, you're going for the dragon. If you want to go for dragon, what are the first things you do? Pressure mid and pressure bottom, then get vision around the dragon so you know what's going to happen, and you have more control, and then you start the dragon. They did this super half-assed. Not only did they only have one lane with priority and pressure, which was bot lane in this case, their mid laner was actually dead, so they like negative pressure mid. I mean, maybe Sven kept the lane even. He held the lane to maybe push the next wave, but they didn't actually have mid pressure, and they didn't have vision either. So their vision, like they had some wards here, but they didn't have deep enough vision to actually tell them when they're getting collapsed on and how they can play it out. And they didn't really have an option to back out during this fight at all. So they really just forced themselves into a lose-lose situation where, like if they fight it, they lose. If they get the dragon, they get collapsed on anyway. They still lose. There's no way that they can play the situation and actually win out because they don't have even numbers, and they're against so many globals. As you can see here, GP just ultis, then teleports in. He just ultis to keep them there, teleports in. Jensen pops his ult. He gets there, obviously, before the LeBlanc, who's dead. Lee Sin gets here at a reasonable time. He's there pretty much at the same time as Gragas. And not only that, C9 just has better ward setup. So Balls is able to TP into the fight. Obviously, this ward that was just put down was the one, it was like the panic ward from TSM. You can tell that in their voice comms. They were like, hey, drop a ward, drop a ward, drop a ward. We're about to fight. But it's too late. Poppy had already made his decision because he saw the fight to TP to bot lane. So everything was just super uncoordinated and super forced without having priority in lanes or even numbers. So that's why this went so poorly. And they all die for it. Yeah, it's pretty much 3 free kills given over to C9. So at this point, C9's utilized their comp almost perfectly. They've used the globals to just get advantages everywhere, and at this point, TSM can't make a solid play on any lane. And since they can't actually pressure the solo lane or the middle lane, the TF, they can't pressure the main global lane with just LeBlanc and Gragas anymore. They decide to swap here, which is actually a decent swap. It's a way to kind of avoid the situation. If you just go back straight into standard lanes and you are disadvantaged everywhere, you just straight up lose the game. You give C9 all the options to make plays, but at least if you send the Kog'Maw and Braum mid, you might lose the bot turret eventually because LeBlanc is solo clearing versus Soraka and Kalista, but at least the TF won't take over the game as much. He won't be able to just pour it out of his lane for free. And Sven's here too. They're trying to it's not really splitting the map because they're not all on one side of the map, but they're trying to just play a game where C9 has to respond. They want to play a map style where both teams are trading evenly. And as you see, C9 tries to make a play off it. They try to use their globals to attack the mid lane, but they're not really able to get anything. So these are the types of things that you do want as TSM. You want C9 to waste globals, and then you have more openings to make plays. What does C9 do? They bring everyone mid because they don't think they can get the bot turret efficiently, and they're trying to just match TSM so that they're able to get more freedom eventually. So obviously Jensen needs a blue buff. Blue buff is super important here, especially if he's going to be clearing mid solo. Gets ganked. Has to burn his flash. I honestly think at this point, if you're C9, you just try to match your lanes. Even if Soraka Kalista isn't great for mid, I think it's much more beneficial to move TF to the side lane and at least have the ability to make that collapse play on mid. Because if you think about it differently, and Soraka and Kalista are sitting mid, TF is bottom, Gangplank's top, they try to make that play they just made with the Gangplank ult, at least TF can then roam up to mid, and you can get more people and more globals to make that play to force it. Obviously, Cog still doesn't have summoners. I think Braum just uses flash. Gragas didn't have his flash either. You get the enemy in a situation where you still can, they still can be exploited by your global comp. So I would have liked to see that rotation instead, but what they end up doing by sending Kalista Straka bottom is they end up just trading, which isn't really good. When you're ahead, you normally don't want to trade. One of the saving graces to this is that Balls is winning his lane so hard 1v1, especially because he picked up all the assists and he has this BF sword and Triforce, that he's able to just take his turret 1v1, which would have happened in no matter what lane setup you do. But yeah, Balls got super far ahead in lane, off the dive, and then off the TP play that he made bottom. So C9's still looking pretty good in this game, even though they haven't really grown their gold leads that much after winning the major fight. So Rush decides to go for a Sterex here, which obviously it protects you against burst, and it synergizes with Cinderhulk because it's a lot of health. But I personally don't like it this early. I would have preferred seeing other items. Like, for example, I think a Cal would have done a lot of good here, especially versus LeBlanc and Gragas. And Kog'Maw obviously does a lot of magic damage with his W and Ginsu's. So I think a Cal would have really gone a long way here. I just think in general, Cal's a better item than Sterex. I think he could have still built into the Sterex later, but I don't think it was super necessary right now. It's just an item that Rush likes to get when he was ahead because it's a damage item that also has health on it, which is understandable. Pretty much the only other item that gives a decent amount of damage and health here that you'd go and lease in would be like a Titanic Hydra or something. So Sterex is definitely more reasonable than that, but I personally would have liked to see a lot more MR coming from him. Like right now, the main source of AD damage is just Poppy, and the Poppy's super far behind. So in my mind, I don't like the chain vest here. I would have much rather seen Cal into Sterex if he wants to really get the Sterex that bad. So Rush roams up, but Hanser was smart and got out of the lane and tried to make a play. Honestly, if Poppy hit that stun, this is probably a kill on Rush, and this is a situation where the Sterex is really good, but in general, this is just the opposite of what C9 want. The reason they take this fight is because they feel like they're so far ahead that they can team fight, which is how you want to play global comps eventually. Once you are farmed enough and on a global comp, then you bring it into team fights and have to win the game through 5v5s at points. But this was just kind of a throw from C9. They should have just been in full retreat mode, in my opinion, especially when Rush got caught. Balls was not there at all. Poppy made the initiative play. I thought this was a really good play from Hanser because he knew that, hey, I'm just losing to this Gangplank. If I just sit in the lane forever versus Gangplank, I'm just going to be behind and I'll never outscale the Gangplank. So he's just trying to make a play on the map. He roamed out of the lane and caught Rush. I think he could have actually got this. He walked a little bit too far for the stun. Serek's proc saves him. And Kalista just hanging out here to dry. If you see here, Gangplank isn't even in the fight yet. Like where is Gangplank? Gangplank hasn't got anything. He just flashed in to try to like kill Hanser with a Q, but always when you're playing against a Kog'Maw comp, the #1 priority is making sure that Kog'Maw can't stand still in auto. If Kog'Maw can free damage, you're pretty much screwed. And now Doublelift is super far ahead, and he's able to carry this game from this point. Other than the QSS was okay here. It was whatever. Like if you're really afraid of the TF gold carding you, that's pretty much their only form of CC. So the QSS is obviously meant to keep him alive. There's other items that you can go here that will help keep you alive. One of them is Sterex. Mainly the Kog'Maw build that I like the most, that I see as the most efficient, is Ginsu's into Runan's Hurricane into Hex Shrinker or Sterex. So you have that survivability, and then you buy either the completed Maw or you buy the Sterex depending on which way you went. So you end up getting both of those items, and then your last item ends up being somewhere between Bork or Mercurial Scimitar if they have a lot of CC, or Wit's End if you just want more damage. So those are generally speaking the Kog'Maw builds I like, and I actually really don't like the build that Doublelift went, so I'll kind of go into that later. But right now I think it's fine. Mercurial Scimitar third if you are worried about CC, and in this point the way he views it is, hey, I'm so strong, the only way we lose a team fight is if I get CC'd. If I'm just able to stand still in auto, we'll be able to win. And he's going to rely on the fact that he has his flash up to avoid things like Lee Sin Insec or Kalista engaging on him. So he's just going to try to outplay the Lee Sin when the Lee Sin comes in and just have a direct counterplay to the gold card. And what TSM does here is smart. They still don't want to play a split game, even though the Kog'Maw is big. They still don't want to force standard lanes, and they're grouping up and forcing C9 to look at them 5v5. And even though C9's ahead in gold, because of the comp difference, it honestly means nothing. TSM is the ones that are actually pressuring here. Rush goes in. It's not really able to do anything. They're engaging super hard here, but they're just simply not able to pressure Doublelift. So yeah, this fight was just an overcommitment from C9. The way you want to eventually play fights like this is you want to have... Yeah, they're joking about just Kog'Maw standing still and how much damage he puts, but the way you want to play the situations is you want your globals to start in the side lane. So here you'd have TF top, Gangplank bottom. The reason you have Gangplank bottom is because his teleport's further. He can TP up all the way if the enemy team starts Baron. Even though that shouldn't really be your concern at this point, it's an option. The way you want to fight this is you want to have your Kalista, Soraka, Lee Sin holding, and then TP flank with a comp like this. Have Jensen port in, gold card Doublelift, he'll cleanse it, Gangplank comes in from the other side, and then you do all this. You flash in, have Lee Sin try to insect him, and you just make sure you kill Doublelift, because LeBlanc's not going to do enough AoE damage at this point to kill everyone. He'll die in a Soraka silence. So mainly it's just focusing Doublelift, and here they ended up gold carding Bjergsen because they're afraid of his damage, but honestly, they just need to be focused on the Kog'Maw, because 3-item Kog'Maw or 2.5-item Kog'Maw will just destroy your team if they fight 5v5. Yeah, and TSM right here, they just, like Kobe's saying, they just want team fights, which is what C9's opting into. They're just not playing to their win condition right now, which is global pressure, splitting. Waiting for Gangplank to hit a really high power spike. Yep, and Doublelift once again is unpressured. TSM have a really good team fight if they are able to formate themselves in a a really standard way. They have 3 tanks, Braum, Poppy, and Gragas, and ideally the way they want a team fight is 3 tanks in front of Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw just does an insane amount of damage and make sure that Kog'Maw's untouched. Bjergsen is just there to be a second threat, to pressure people, but it doesn't really matter if he dies or not. If Kog'Maw's alive at the end of the fight, Kog will be able to kill everyone. At this point, C9 has already thrown the game. In my opinion, they shouldn't be able to win based off team comps, but yeah, I think that the TSM ends up misplaying a little bit later. This point is good. They made their comeback. They forced the team fights. They played to their win condition, and now they should just be taking all of the outer turrets on the map. So yeah, this is what I was talking about playing C9 into comps like, or playing Lee Sin into comps like this, is that if Lee Sin tries to make an insect play, which is what their engage was trying to be, he was trying to go on the Cog, Gragas ease him, that's over. Poppy, if he's there, can just throw up his W. Can't insect off that either. It just makes it so hard to play this champion. So yeah. So right now, I don't necessarily like what TSM's doing. I feel like they're forcing too hard mid. Mid is actually the hardest outer turret to take. When you get Baron like this at this point in the game and all the outers are open, besides for obviously the mid one, your easiest play is to just have balls push out a side wave, just push one wave mid, and then immediately rotate top and just send and get all the outer turrets down. Go up here, take this turret. As soon as you get this turret, all either rotate back mid, push another mid wave, or just recall and then do the same thing where balls push, or Hanser pushes up bottom, Poppy pushes up bottom, and then your team pushes up mid and then goes to bottom. Getting the outer turrets is how you win the game here. Yep. Here they just feel they're strong enough to actually get an inhibitor, so that's why they're going for this. But in reality, the easiest way to win is just to expand your gold lead as much as possible. Right now, they're at a 1.5k gold lead. If they get the bottom 2 turrets, then that becomes like a 3k gold lead. And that's how you just snowball with Baron. And once you get all that control, you get all these turrets down, the way that you play the game is just control Baron, go for the next Baron, and then on the next Baron, you end up going for inhibs. But here, it just seems that TSM thought that they were strong enough to just straight up fight C9, which to me I thought was really different from C9. Normally, when C9's in positions like this, with the enemy team gets Baron, Hai was always really good at shot calling people around the map. Like he would know which lanes of his were pushing and force you to respond to them. So while you're getting Baron, he would tell the team, okay, sacrifice that Baron, go push out mid and bot, and then send people bot and force the enemy team to respond to your bot push, or you're just ahead in tempo. You're pushing the turrets before the enemy team's pushing the turrets. So I would have liked to see that from C9 at this point, just so that there was a way that they can kind of force their TSM to just still run around the map and not just run down a lane 5v5. In the end, it ended up being a good call from TSM because they were very aware of how strong they were. Double Lift here was confident that, hey, if you just stand in front of me, I'll just take the hit by myself, which is what he ended up doing. This was the first itemization mistake I saw Double Lift make. I would have much rather seen Starex Gauge instead of Frozen Mallet as a health item. I just don't think the health from the Mallet is obviously good, but the effective HP you'd get from your Starex Gauge popping is even better. So really the only way you lose is if you get popped, and Starex is the perfect item to avoid you getting popped. So yeah, they push mid, get that down, and then rotate bottom. So now they're going for the outer turrets. So yeah, I guess at this point they did make the correct decision. Normally when you get a Baron like that and you don't have a champion like Kog'Maw who's as ridiculous, you want to play the outer turret game where you just clear all the outer turrets and balloon your gold lead and snowball the game through that. But at this point, they understand their team comp. They've obviously played with Kog'Maw. They've been practicing with it all week. So they're like, hey, as soon as we get Baron with Kog'Maw, just shove down a lane. Kog'Maw will take the turret because of the amount of range he has, the attacks per second, etc. So, yeah. They back, and now they're going to push up mid. Honestly, at this point with TSM, so you got all the outers down, you ballooned your gold lead. In my opinion, you just wait for the next Baron. You've done so much already. You had such a big Baron power play. You had about a 5k gold Baron power play. Just control, like, get this dragon, then control vision on the top side of the map, and just go for the Baron, the next Baron. Here it's in 2 minutes, so you don't have to do it quite yet. You can push up bot a little bit, force a little bit of pressure there, but about 1 minute to 45 seconds before Baron spawns, controlling Baron becomes extremely valuable. Getting deep wards in the enemy jungle, at this point, buying pinks, like Bjergsen should have a pink right now. I don't know if his pink is the... Actually, like maybe his pink is on the blue buff. It doesn't even matter. Maybe it's in that top bush. He needs another pink ward here to be able to just drop it in the enemy jungle and just maintain that much control and force C9 to face check you. Or if C9 doesn't enter their jungle, then just straight up do the Baron. So yeah, they try to go for Kog'Maw, and Kog'Maw barely lives. And now he's trying to auto attack. This is exactly the situation where Starex Gauge would help you a lot. Let's go back. See what happens. Let's go back a little bit further. Let's go to 38-15 in the VOD. 38-18. That's fine. Let's see the initial damage he takes. That would probably pop your Starex almost. Yeah, his Starex would have definitely popped. The barrel combo into GP ult, 100% his Starex pops. It's just more effective stats than this mallet. This mallet isn't doing shit for you at this point. And it would have made that TF play almost like impossible for them to go for. Here the slow isn't really doing much for you at all. It's Starex, if it pops, gives you more damage than the frozen mallet anyway in terms of just raw AD. So yeah, just that's a point where the buy just doesn't help you at all. But okay, game's still completely in control from TSM. Everyone back, buy pink wards, go push up mid as far as you can. Push up mid and top as far as you can. Top will probably auto push because you have an inhib down, but push up top and mid as far as you can. Go into the enemy jungle, drop deep wards in the enemy jungle, drop pinks in the enemy jungle, control their whole top side, and then either take a team fight if they come out of their base or just get a free Baron. That's all you need to do here. So yeah, their top's already pushing. They're getting mid priority. Double F got red, 100% reasonable. Get your red so that you're able to do more. Just all good. Everything's good here. And they're getting deep vision control. Perfect. They know what to do. So yeah, they can do a 2-man here. They should just get off of it as soon as the blue trinkets popped. Just look for a kill. Yep, and this is what they're doing. If C9 has to start running in like this, like, yeah, it looks like Rush just got caught like an idiot, but he just saw the enemy team stop Baron. He has to move towards the Baron now because there is so much disengage and ways to get Rush out of the pit. So he needs to be there early so that he's able to kind of manipulate the situation, get wards down. Maybe somebody needs to TP in. But yeah, TSM played this perfectly so far. Haunter kills the barrels. Excellent. Continuing Baron. Enemy team has no smite. This seems like too much for me. Seemed like an unnecessary turn. They're having to force so hard for this. Alright. Yeah, they only got 1 kill there on Soraka. That seemed to me like an overforce. Let's go back. Can't see the Baron here. Baron HP. It's about 500 HP. Let's see. So there's multiple different ways you can play this. One way that I actually like here is, Haunter doesn't need to be here at all. Having Haunter wait even deeper in the flank, like even wait towards his mid lane turret, force them in, and then flank them. It's really hard to just chase directly into them. They have so many ways to just get out with just TF, just gold cards. They have GP that's gonna be barreling this whole time. I think if they wanted to turn, they should have set up for the turn better instead of just running directly into them. Going sneaky, going sneaky. They're just running straight into barrels. Honestly, I think they should be able to just finish the Baron. They should just commit to finishing the Baron. They still had Gragas ulti, right? They can just Gragas ulti to disengage. So here, like that ult's not gonna kill you. They can just kite up, get into the Baron pit, and just do the Baron. Have other people deal with the barrels. Gragas can just ult them away, or Poppy is ult here. Poppy can just ult them away. They should just be looking to finish the Baron here because they know that there's no smite threat, and then they should just try to disengage so that they don't get killed while doing it. If Gangplank's not on top of them, if Kalista's not on top of them, they can finish this Baron easy. More time. Yeah, head for Baron. You're super tanky. They started during the TF ult. Here, right now, Hunter could just be channeling his ult. He can just channel the ult and knock balls away. And then you're just guaranteed Baron. Svenskar can toss his ultimate too. They can have whoever they want just zoning these people, but they have so much disengage, they don't need to like run into barrels. They just need to be conscious of the barrels being on top of them. If they just ulti the balls away, if they Poppy ulti or Gragas ulti him away, they should just be able to get out of here. Jensen just gets lucky here. They just didn't know that he survived with the Zanyas. They should have at least picked him up too, and then gone back to this. But they don't even have a jungler, so they can't even do it anymore. I guess they got a Nexus turret. Like, them stalling there is fine, but I think they could have played it better. I think they could have just got the Baron. So yeah, either way, that happens. Just because you didn't profit as hard as you want doesn't mean that the game plan has to change. TSM should be looking to do the same thing again. Sure, Poppy can push this way, but same thing again. Everyone needs to still be buying pink wards. Sven should not be buying that Ruby Crystal. Get that Ruby Crystal out of there. Get a pink ward and go into the enemy jungle with pink wards and drop them. Even if you already have a pink ward down in the enemy jungle, there's such a high chance that the enemy clears it while you're just walking from base to mid lane. They should just be buying more pink wards than this. I honestly think as jungler right now, buying 2 pink wards is pretty efficient. Just buy them as you used to buy green wards in competitive. It's fine. Yep. Push up mid. Go control vision in the enemy jungle. Go top. Go top. Control vision in the enemy jungle. Hey, this is not going to work. You can't just siege. Can you? No. It's just making it so much harder than it needs to be, dude. This doesn't need to be that hard. Instead of using the advantage that you have, like the pressure advantage you have an inhib down. Instead of using all this to your advantage and forcing C9 to spread themselves thin, you're just letting them do what they want to do. They're able to clear the super minions on their inhibitor, and they're able to like take a team fight if they need it. Rush goes too far. They just changed the game plan unnecessarily because it didn't work out perfectly, which I've done that too. Like that's not something that's it's really obvious when you're outside of game, but in game it's just like even though they got an inhib turret, this is harder than it needed to be, by far, way harder than it needed to be. You do Baron so fast at this point in the game too. If you control this amount of vision and you have mid all the way pushed out, if you control all the topside jungle and you have mid all the way pushed up, And Lee Sin isn't close. Like Lee Sin is not on any of those wards, or he's like just sitting in the middle of mid lane, like near his own inhib. You can just start Baron. You just do the Baron fast enough. I accidentally did that. Hold on. Let's go back to where we were. Okay. So yeah, and then C9 gets so much control that they shouldn't have. This is like criminal, dude. This is a crime letting them have this vision control. And now you're forced to check instead of, since even though you have control and you had pressure, you're the ones that have to check like idiots into them and get chunked instead of them having to check like idiots into you. This is all what happens when you don't control vision properly. So, yep. Got this. We'll talk about a little bit about itemization in a second. So, okay. So here, let's go over a couple things. So, hopefully this fades out in a second so I can see all the items without this YouTube thing on my screen. But anyway, itemization here, I think it's fine for balls. I'm completely okay with the Maw. He's going MR. I don't like the Guardian Angel at all on Rush. It seems like if you die, you should just die again. I think there's better items that will make you even more tanky. Things like Randuin's Omen are super good there. AoE slow is good. I personally just don't like GA that much right now. ZZ Rot is also something that could be useful at this point. ZZ Rot can help you defensively too. You can use it to hold a lane. And it gives you the same stats as GA and it's cheaper. So I personally like that item. You can do things like throw it top. It will slow the push from the enemy minions down, and you'll eventually just have to deal with the problem less. Maybe you save a Nexus turret doing that. That's another option. Those are probably your main two. Maybe you can go Thornmail. I don't think Thornmail is very good here. They have a lot of magic damage on the enemy team. So as your armor item, I think it's either ZZ Rot, which gives you 60 armor, 60 MR, really solid, or I think it's just going for the Randuin so you have a little bit more of a health pool and you have the active. So that, I think, is pretty much what you want to be going for here. On the side of TSM, I'm not a fan of the Banshee's Veil here on Braum. I think Braum needs to have more armor than this. He's against GP and Callista. Those, like, even though GP ignores a portion of your armor, it's still better to have armor than to just be pretty much full MR. You're not going to be getting killed here by just the TF, and Lee Sin does all physical damage. Gangplank does mostly physical damage. Like, the only thing that's magic on his kit is the ulti, and Callista is doing full physical damage. I just don't see a reason that you need like 170 MR on your champion instead of, it's like right now he's probably on 60 or 70 armor. He could have way more than that. He could be at 130 and just be effectively more tanky against the enemy team. So yeah, that's pretty much all I see from itemization. I think that's the main flaws that they have right now. I think everyone else built correctly. I think Sven built correctly. Bjergsen obviously had to go the early void. Then he's going death cap. Completely fine with all that. And yeah, I like the Kog'Maw build besides for Essence Reaver and Frozen Mallet. I would have much rather seen either Sterix Gauge and maybe Wit's End, or just a damage item that would be more efficient than Essence Reaver. I don't think he has that much crit here. I don't think the Essence Reaver is really doing that much for him. I don't think the CDR is super important either. I just think that generally speaking, there's better 6-item builds like Wit's End. Even if he had a Maw here, I wouldn't fault him for that. It would give him a lot more sustain if he ever did get chunked. So generally speaking, I would like to see just different items here from the Kog'Maw. Definitely Sterix Gauge instead of Frozen Mallet. That's guaranteed. I can understand not wanting to go Maw versus this much AD, but I just don't think the Essence Reaver is like super useful here. I would actually like to see the ratios of physical to magic damage on a champion like Kog'Maw to see if it's worth it like Corki to go Void. Because Corki, for example, as an AD carry, you do like 75 to 80% magic damage. It's actually worth it to go Void Staff on Corki instead of Armor Pen. So maybe Kog'Maw's the same. Not completely sure. And the other option that you have that you might not like Doublelift probably wouldn't like because he likes to go full damage, is trying to make yourself 100% uninsecable. So you get Sterak's Gauge, and then you get Banshee's Veil, and you just make sure that you're not going to get hit by random shit. And if you do get hit by random shit, you have like a little bit of leeway. So that's a lot of MR for this game, but I would have much rather seen the Banshee's Veil on him because he does so much damage, and if he's able to output it, it doesn't really matter if he has like an extra 60 AD or not, than see the Banshee's Veil on Braum here, where it doesn't really matter if he gets CC'd or gets hit by a spell. I want to see how fast Braum drops in these fights to physical damage. So they lose the inhibitor. It's a really, really sick play by Rush. And that's where you want your Sterak's, man. That is where you want your Sterak's. Jesus Christ, dude. Everything went bad so fast. He shouldn't be able to do that. There's like that's such a hard play to commit to from Rush, but yeah, he was just able to do it, and he killed Doublelift with it. He got the kick straight into his team. And Doublelift even did something that I thought was really tricky. He cleansed the end of the knockback so he wasn't CC'd and flashed instantly to try to just gain a little bit more ground, but it was just too good of a play from Rush. This is super hard to do. Honestly, Poppy should be closer, and he should be using his W to block that. And that's also a crazy barrel combo. Yeah, Yellowstar just gets destroyed here, dude. Look at his health just drop. Look at Yellowstar's health just drop because he's got no armor. So right here, I think Sven should just be throwing his ult to disengage. They should be trying to disengage this fight. They shouldn't be like body slamming into this cluster. Look at all these people on top of each other. Bjergsen is the only one that's not going to get barrel comboed here. Look at that barrel combo. You see Yellowstar's health just drop. Obviously, yeah, Doublelift made the good play. QSS'd the end of the Lee Sin knockback, which is something you can do. You can do it on a lot of knockups. Like, for example, even Vialt, if you QSS right when you're at the top of Vialt, you can actually flash instantly, where a lot of CCs just don't work similarly to that. So that's something just to keep in mind. Man, you would love to have that extra Sterak's health right there. I don't know if Kog'Maw's heal was down. The cooldown looked really weird there, but maybe he forgot to use his heal too. Or maybe he just thought he was just going to die anyway. But yeah, they just stopped playing the macro game correctly. They just threw themselves up mid over and over again instead of just getting an advantage through their vision control. I said it a bunch of times, but I'll just say it one more time. What they should have done: push up mid, push up top, control vision in the enemy jungle, then go Baron. You kill Baron so fast at this point in the game. You force the enemies to come into you, and then you can take a fight that's out of these chokes. Like, you don't have to be sitting 5 people inside a small choke in the enemy's base and get barrel comboed. You can have a more spread out fight where you can just avoid the barrels, or you have more room to auto them. Honestly, just being in the base like that is just a clusterfuck, and that's just the worst situation for you as a TSM player. Yeah, what they're talking about right now is true. Hanser could have just sat on top of Doublelift, just uses W if Lee Sin ever tries to either war jump or Q in. The more I see this, the more I think that Banshee's Sterak's would have been the correct build here. Go on, Rush. Just GA is going to pay off here. Oh, wait, no, his GA didn't even get procced yet. Yeah, I hate the GA. I'm not a fan. At this point, you just lose the game. You don't have the advantage anymore. You lost too many team fights. You lost your gold lead. You're up 5K, and then you just lost it by throwing yourself on mid over and over again. Balls hard carried this, dude. He hard carried these last fights. Look at the barrel combo that he gets off here. It's this one right here. You see this barrel right here? Just watch it. Ult, and then watch this combo. Here. Come back in. Right here when they come back in. Barrel into second barrel. This is the combo. 1,572 damage. That's what comes in here. Look at Doublelift and Svenskaren's health bars. Boom. Look at Doublelift's health bar. Look what just happened. That already is. That's a stacks right there, dude. That will proc it right there. It's smart for Jensen to commit to flash gold carding Doublelift. Just make sure that he gets the cleanse out. So then the second time, if he pulls the gold there, for example, he can kill him. And that just barrel combo just won them the game. That's why I'm such a fan of GP. Yeah, still not a fan of the GA. As you see, the GA didn't even pop there, so much rather see other items there. I also think this game had a lack of ZZ routes. I think they should have had at least one ZZ route. Damn. Yeah, dude, gangplank's dumb, but they didn't play around the gangplank correctly. Get an inhib. I really don't know how you win at this point anymore, though. You have to prioritize killing the gangplank. I think that you have to have like LeBlanc at least pressuring the gangplank, at least pop his maw or something. I haven't even seen where LeBlanc has used their spells yet. That barrel chain, dude. 3-man barrel chain. GG. Bjergsen plays it well, kills the TF. But at this point, TF's just mainly like CC and AoE damage, but he's not the threat that Gangplank is, for sure. Maybe once TF gets his Rabadon's death cap, he can get to that point, but not yet. Not here. This is kind of a long game, long VOD review, but I think it's been one of the better ones, so hopefully you guys are enjoying it so far. Now TSM went from up 5K to down 7K by just repeatedly making the wrong macro call. Just forcing mid over and over again. Yeah, balls just went off, dude. Now he's got his core build. That right there, that's 100% crit from GP, right? It's maybe it's not 100, but it's really close.
Look at those explosion crit numbers. That in itself intimidating.
Super close.
Rush with the GA. The GA has paid off. That combined with the surrounding.
Now he's walking up mid.
I mean, how much of it is
Getting pressure around mid.
Also knowing that you have a GA.
Dragon doesn't matter. Fourth dragon for TSM. Fourth dragon means nothing. I would love to see the Baron timer here to see how long they have to wait for that. I don't like the BF sword from Rush here. I think just buying anything else would be better here. Once again, now they're trying to pressure balls, but they're just too far behind. Doublelift can't free damage anymore at this point, and the tanks just got too far ahead of Doublelift. Instead of the tanks engaging, they just need to be like just bodying in front of Doublelift and being ready to zone for him. There's so many times Sterix would have proc during this game, though. So many times. There it didn't matter. They shouldn't have taken that fight. After Poppy died for free, they should just be running back and like defending their Nexus turrets and being like, hey, just we'll take the fight. We'll take that same fight, but right here. Take it right here on the inhibitor turrets or the Nexus turrets. Don't take it in the middle of mid lane. They weren't gonna get completely caught right there. They just need to keep on walking back. Take that fight right here. And yeah, that concludes the game. So yeah, this is my longest VOD review by far. It was one of the longest games that I've done a VOD review for, and there was a lot of stuff I wanted to break down and go back in. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like always, if you want to see more of these, like the video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, leave down in the comments what you think I could improve on or what concepts you would like to learn from competitive games. So if there's anything like maybe a really good split push game from CLG or a good macro play game from Immortals, I'll be willing to do that. Also, I'll be doing an EU LCS and an NA LCS VOD review every week. Normally, I'll try to get them out on the day that region's LCS finishes. This week was obviously different. I had a lot of stuff going on, like I mentioned before. A 24-hour stream, as well as trying to fix microphone problems and audio. All that was going on right here. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.